Alien students met the galaxy's apex predator, then watched it back away from a human HFY story. Observation deck of the Galactic Academy's Xenobiology Station hummed with nervous energy as 12 alien students pressed against the reinforce. Transparisteel, their various appendages twitching with anticipation. Professor Zefkar, a towering Altarian with crystalline features, gestured toward the containment chamber below with one of his 4 arms. "Today, class, you will witness the galaxy's most feared apex predator," he announced, his translator crackling with static. "The Kithering Deathstalker has never been observed in captivity. This specimen was captured after it devastated 3 research colonies. In the chamber below, something massive stirred in the shadows. The Deathstalker emerged slowly, a nightmare of chitinous armor, razor-sharp claws, and bioluminescent threat. Displays that pulse like a dying star. Standing 12 feet tall on 6 legs, with mandibles that could shear through battle-grade alloy. It was evolution's perfect killing machine. The students recoiled instinctively. Veltara, a young Zephyrian whose gossamer wings fluttered with fear, whispered, It's beautiful in its horror." "Indeed," Professor Zefkar nodded. "The Deathstalker has no natural predators across 17 star systems. It's neural. Implants show stress patterns we've never recorded. Observe." The creature paced restlessly, its threat displays flickering erratically. Something was wrong. Despite being the undisputed apex predator of known space, it seemed ... afraid. "Professor," squeaked Pip, a small Glorbonian whose eye stalk swiveled. Nervously, "why does it appear distressed? Surely nothing threatens a Deathstalker?" Before Zefkar could respond, the chamber's secondary airlock hissed open. A figure emerged from the decontamination unit bipedal, relatively small, covered in simple fabric. The students had read about this species in their xenobiology texts, but never seen one in person. "A human?" gasped the Thrix, her tentacles coiling. In confusion. "But they're not scheduled for observation until next rotation." The human, a middle-aged female with graying hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, seemed oblivious to the mechanical warnings echoing through the chamber. She wore no protective gear, carried no weapons, and walked with the casual confidence of someone taking an evening stroll. What happened next will be discussed in xenobiology classes for decades to come. The Deathstalker, the galaxy's most feared predator, took one look at the approaching human and backed away. Its bioluminescent displays shifted from aggressive red to a pale, fearful blue. The creature that had never shown submission to any living thing pressed itself against the far wall, mandibles chattering in what could only be described as distress. "Extraordinary," breathed Professor Zefkar, frantically adjusting his recording equipment. "The neural readings are unprecedented. It's exhibiting pure terror." The human, meanwhile, had noticed the Deathstalker's distress. Her expression softened with what the students recognized as concern and emotion most species reserve for their own kind. "Hey there, big guy," she said gently, her voice carrying despite the chamber's vast size. "What's got you all worked up?" She approached slowly, hands visible and empty. The Deathstalker's threat displays flickered frantically, but it made no aggressive moves. Instead, it seemed torn between its predatory instincts and an overwhelming urge to flee. "Professor," Veltara whispered, "how is this possible?" "The Deathstalker should be eviscerating her." Zefkar's expression was one of scientific fascination mixed with growing comprehension. "Class, you're witnessing something remarkable. The Deathstalker recognizes what we've only begun to understand about humans." The human had stopped a few feet from the creature. She settled into a cross-legged position, making herself smaller and less threatening. "You're scared, aren't you? I know that feeling." Impossibly, the Deathstalker's aggressive posture began to relax. Its mandibles stopped chattering, and the fearful blue of its displays gradually shifted to a curious yellow-green. "You see," Professor Zefkar continued, his voice filled with academic wonder, "humans are not apex predators in the traditional sense. There's something far more dangerous, They're persistent hunters. For millions of years, they didn't need to be the fastest or strongest. They simply never gave up. The human had begun speaking softly to the Deathstalker, her words carrying across the chamber with surprising clarity. My species once hunted megafauna across ice ages. We tracked woolly mammoths for days, not because we were stronger, but because we never stopped coming. We turned pursuit into art, exhaustion into victory. The Deathstalker had crept closer, drawn by something in her voice that transcended language barriers. But that's not why you're afraid of me, is it? She continued, reaching out slowly. The Deathstalker didn't retreat. You're afraid because you recognize something in us that you've never encountered before. We don't just hunt to eat or defend territory. We hunt to understand. We capture apex predators not to destroy them, but to study them, to learn from them, to help them. Her hand made contact with the creature's armored head. The Deathstalker's display shifted to a soft, warm gold that none of the students had ever seen before. Remarkable, Zefkar murmured. She's demonstrating the ultimate predatory trait, the ability to make any other creature trust her completely. Thrix's tentacles writhed with confusion. But Professor, if humans are so dangerous, why doesn't the Deathstalker attack? Because, Zefkar replied, the Deathstalker understands what we're only beginning to grasp. Humans don't conquer through fear or force alone. They conquer through something far more powerful: empathy. They can stand face to face with their greatest enemies and find common ground. Below, the human had stood up. The Deathstalker followed her movements with what could only be described as curiosity rather than aggression. The galaxy's true apex predator, she said, looking directly up at the observation deck as if she knew they were watching, isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest armor. It's the one that can look at any other living thing and see not an enemy, but a potential friend. As she walked toward the exit, the Deathstalker followed her to the edge of its containment area, its displays now pulsing with the warm gold of contentment. The students sat in stunned silence as Professor Zefkar made his final observation. Class, you have just witnessed why humans have never lost a war they truly committed to winning. They don't just defeat their enemies, they make their enemies choose to surrender. In the chamber below, the galaxy's most feared predator watched the human disappear through the airlock, already missing the presence of the species it instinctively knew was more dangerous than itself.